Good evening, everyone. I think we should be okay for me to go ahead and get started. If anyone is having any issues with hearing me or anything like that, just let me know and I'm happy to adjust. Welcome and thank you for joining us this evening for the Global Conflict and Human Security Master of Science virtual information session. I know that we're all probably accustomed to how Zoom works, but just as a quick tutorial at the bottom, you do have your mute button, and then you also have your start video button. Please, if you feel comfortable enough, feel free to turn your cameras on. And then we just ask that folks remain muted throughout the session just to avoid any extra noise in the background. Throughout the session, if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat. We'll be sure to get to them at the end of our session. We will have a question and answer portion at the end. And I can go ahead and just give you a brief overview of the agenda. So these are the topics that we'll cover. So we'll do an introduction of our team and who we have in the room today. We will review program information. We have our wonderful program coordinator here with us today. Melinda Negron-Gonzales will be covering all you need to know about the program. She will also review potential careers. We do have a guest speaker as well, which we're really excited about. We will cover sort of why UNH, what makes us unique, what makes us special, what also sets us apart. We will also review our tuition and financial aid, as well as how to apply into the program. And then, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we will have an opportunity to go ahead and have you ask any questions as well. So this is our fabulous team. And also this team will serve as a network of support for you. So I'll start with our student success team. We are on the right side of that orange bar right there. So I'll start with Heather Holland. She is our associate director. I am Cheyenne Acevedo. I'm the Assistant Director of Online Student Success. We have Callie Iorardi to the bottom left. She is a Student Success Coach. And then we have Danielle Beatty, our other Student Success Coach. So we're here to support you from initial inquiry through graduation. And if you're here this evening, you may very well have already had conversations with us. On the left-hand side, as I mentioned, we have our fabulous program director here, Melinda Negron-Gonzales, and then we also have Robin Husledge as well. And I will go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Cheyenne. Hi, everyone, and welcome. I am the program director for the Global Conflict and Human Security Program. GCHS is the acronym that we use. And I will tell you a little bit about the program. First, I'll begin by explaining our curricula. So the world's most vulnerable communities are in fragile and conflict-affected states. And fragile states is basically the term that we use for those countries that have very weak state and public institutions. And basically, the World Bank estimates that by 2030, up to 2/3 of the world's extreme poor could live in fragile and conflict-affected countries. And in fact, conflicts drive about 80% of all humanitarian needs around the world. And so it's really quite simply impossible for societies at war to develop sustainable and resilient food systems, health systems, education systems, and so on. Basically, if there is no peace, there can be no sustainable development. And that's really what we focus on in the GCHS program. If you're interested in a career in global development, then you should also have some really deep knowledge of conflict studies, because a lot of the development work in the least developed countries also happens in a context of on-again, off-again armed conflict. And so the GCHS program requires courses in global development studies, in conflict studies, and in global governance studies. And basically, we will equip you to devise solutions to the problems facing people around the world, but especially in fragile states and conflict-affected countries. And so we basically teach you how to design projects and policies that holistically address the 7 dimensions of human security. And human security is a term of art at the United Nations. And human security has 7 dimensions: economic security, environmental security, food security, health security, political security, personal security, and community security. So it's at all levels of society, from the individual all the way up to the state. And so if you look at the images on this slide, we see political unrest and demands for a new constitution. We see some major construction projects, urbanization and pollution. We see a farmer, and all of these things are tied to human well-being, or what we call human security. And all of these issues are interrelated, and all of these are issues of public policy. So our students have a range of interests across a lot of different areas. And so you see here on this slide, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And basically, these are a global blueprint created by the United Nations to facilitate the creation of a more just, peaceful, and sustainable world. And you see that these Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs for short, are pretty broad. And so we teach students to look across these 17 overarching goals and think holistically about how we can design programs to address a range of issues. But everyone comes into the program with ideas about which of these areas they would like to work in, or which of these areas they're already working in and want to expand their knowledge in. And so as a student, you would choose which of these areas you'd like to focus on for your capstone experience. And I'll talk more about the capstone experience in a bit. I should mention that this is not a program that's focused on US national security per se. However, it is absolutely a program for those who are interested in US national security, and who are interested in a career at the State Department, the Department of Defense, or especially at USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development. Because a lot of what USAID does around the world is try to promote the achievement of these 17 Sustainable Development Goals, especially in conflict-affected societies. And what USAID does is it calls that kind of work in conflict-affected society its stabilization programs. So for instance, USAID was in Afghanistan while the US was in Afghanistan for 20 years doing stabilization work. And we talk a lot about that work and that case study of Afghanistan in this program. So again, even though this is not a program about US national security per se, it is definitely a program for those who are interested in doing development work for one of the US federal agencies. And so as you look across that infographic here for the Sustainable Development Goals, I should mention that my expertise falls under SDG 16, which you can see there says peace, justice, and strong institutions. And I've conducted field research on counterterrorism and human rights and judicial and police reform in Turkey. So that falls under the SDG 16. I'm currently working on a project on US foreign policy in Syria and its partnership with Kurdish rebels, who are the acting government in northeast Syria, who are trying to achieve these Sustainable Development Goals, even though the Syrian war has not fully ended. And so that's my expertise. But we have students who have an interest in education, in girls' education in Morocco. We have our guest graduate, former student in GCHS, who is a medical doctor and has an interest in health security specifically. And so our students really are all over the place in terms of their interest and which sustainable development goals they choose to look at for their capstone projects. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just some basic information. The GCHS program is 10 courses or 30 credits, and you can complete the master's in 12 months of full-time participation. And we do have 2 tracks. So you would choose one of 2 areas of specialization. And one area of specialization is the project management track, and that is for people who want to go into monitoring and evaluation work, which is a central component of all of the international development projects and programs around the world. You have to design projects that meet people's needs, and then you have to monitor them, and you have to evaluate whether or not your projects are actually achieving the goals that it's set out to. And so we teach you how to develop those skills. We also have a track called Policy and Administration, and that is geared more toward people who are interested in public policy and especially in global policy. And so if you're interested in working on global policy and perhaps a career at the United Nations or the World Bank or some other multilateral organization, that would be the track for you. And you would take some courses with some of our public policy and public administration students at the Carsey School. And for the capstone projects, we make sure that students are working closely with faculty mentors. We pride ourselves at UNH having really small class sizes for online asynchronous programs. And so the capstone projects for the project management track in GCHS traverses 4 different courses. So you will actually be working on your capstone project across 4 different courses for a total of about 6 months at the very least. And so we give you time to really develop your ideas for how you could address the needs of a particular community. And a lot of students end up doing their projects in their own community. So if you live in New Hampshire, you would do a project in your community, let's say Manchester, New Hampshire. Or if you live in Djibouti, you would do a project on some need in your community. You would design that project to meet the needs that you've identified, and then you would implement that project in your community, monitor it, and see what the progress is, evaluate your progress, and you would share that with the rest of the cohort. And that's the project management track. And then for the policy and administration track, you would work on a problem set in a course of other people who are in our public policy and public administration programs to really design effective public policies. And here you can see just the way the program is mapped out and the different courses that we require for each track. This is the online academic calendar that we follow. So we follow an 8-week term calendar, pretty intensive. And so each course lasts 8 weeks. The courses are fully asynchronous, which means that we do not have real-time Zoom meetings, although we do have optional Zoom sessions. And we also ask that you meet with your advisors from time to time via Zoom. Okay, potential careers. So here we've got a list of some of the potential careers that this will prepare you for: foreign aid specialist, program manager, a foreign service officer, humanitarian aid worker, international consultant, an international development specialist, monitoring and evaluation officer. That's one of the fastest growing professions in the global development industry, which is a growing industry, policy analyst, and civil affairs officers for those who are active duty military. And now I'm going to pass it over to one of our recent graduates, Nishanth Arulappan, to talk about the program from a student's perspective.
Hello everyone. This is Nishanth here. Thank you for having me join this webinar today. I'll give you a little bit of background about myself, and I'll also tell you why I chose the GCHS program. I come from a background in humanitarian work. I've been with Doctors Without Borders since 2014. And as you know, Doctors Without Borders, also known as Médecins Sans Frontières, the French acronym. And MSF has been working in conflict-affected areas since the early 70s, and MSF was given the Nobel Peace Prize for its work in conflict zones. We work typically on both sides of the front lines, and we are typically the first one in and the last one out in these conflict areas. My work with MSF was very intense, but MSF was focused just on saving lives. MSF is a humanitarian organization, and the focus is always on the immediate short-term goal of saving lives. But what I did find is that though MSF does amazing and very intense work in the short term, in the long term, we cannot change things for our patients. So, for example, I was in northeast Syria where when ISIS was being pushed out, there was heavy aerial bombardment happening, and the area was contaminated with mines and IEDs. For the patients who reached our facility who had injuries, we could perform, surgeries on them and give them excellent surgical care. But once they left the hospital, they had to go back to the same context. There were a lot of things in the context which did not change for them, and they were just as vulnerable as they were before they came to the hospital. So that's what really got me thinking. The thing is, in the hospital, I could treat them, but once they went back to their refugee camps or to the place where they were staying, these other contextual threats continued to remain. So I was looking for a program that would help me address these issues, and that's when a friend and colleague suggested the GCHS program to me. I had a quick call with Melinda. I explained my background, and I wanted to make sure that whether a person with a background in the medical field could do this program. She said yes, and I have to tell you, I have absolutely no regrets in taking up the program. It was amazing, because what I really needed was, I wanted some solid grounding on the theoretical issues in conflict, because quite often, as you see, with those of us in the field, we are very intensely focused on treating patients and delivering services that we hardly have the time to think back on the larger issues of conflict, and especially conflict theory. And the good thing about the GCHS program is that we had a solid grounding in conflict theory and global governance, and also good governance, which is international development and security. These three core courses was very, very useful for me. And so when I graduated, I designed a project for Northeast Syria, and that was very helpful for me. So I would strongly recommend that you do. I mean, for those of you who are interested in the program, to strongly take it up. It doesn't matter which background you're from, because all the coursework covers cross-cutting issues that cuts across different silos of different areas. So that's about it from my side. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this.
Great. Thanks so much, Nishanth. Going back to careers, I wanted to mention quickly before I pass it over to Cheyenne, the international development industry and the humanitarian industry, separate but related industries, are growing. You only need to watch the news to understand why they are growing. And multilateral organizations such as the World Bank and the United Nations, as well as foreign aid agencies like USAID, have really prioritized humanitarian and development assistance for conflict-affected societies. In fact, almost 2/3 of all State Department administered overseas development assistance goes to fragile and conflict affected countries. And the US Congress in recent years has actually dedicated even more foreign aid dollars toward conflict prevention and peace building around the world. So this is a high priority area for multilateral organizations, foreign aid agencies, and non-governmental organizations around the world. And I'll pass it over to Cheyenne. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Gonzales. So I'm jumping in and really just want to highlight what makes UNH special, what sets us apart, especially as an online learner, where you may be coming from far away and not coming to campus. So I apologize for saying that, but really getting a world-class education from, wherever you may be coming from, all parts of the world, all parts of the United States. So we are the flagship institution of the state of New Hampshire, and we are very proud to say that we do hold an R1 research classification. So what that means is our students are conducting the highest level of research, not only in what we may automatically think like in a lab with a white coat, but from the comfort of their own homes. So being an online learner, I think it's important for you to know that you will have the opportunity to be a part of this world-class research opportunity. And we are just one of only 40 schools in the country that has this designation, and we're really proud of it because we also do not have a medical school. And again, it's just a testament to our amazing online students as well. As Dr. Gonzales mentioned earlier, we are very proud to have small class sizes. This really provides a space for more collaboration, increased interaction with faculty, and just being able to network with classmates. And again, you're going to be working with folks from all different parts and really having the ability to learn from other people, I think is an amazing opportunity that our students have. We do have amazing faculty, of course. So not only are our faculty experts in their field, but they are practitioners in their field, and many are actively practicing and leaders in their field as well. And we do have a learning community with an emphasis on theory and practice as well. And as an online student, you will be receiving a whole network of support as part of your time, not only during the application process, but throughout your time in the program leading through graduation. You will get a grad academic advisor. So this person will really be a wealth of knowledge around course selection, guiding you to, electives that may align most with your career goals, your passions, your, career related aspirations that you may have. Dr. Gonzales, are you a part of this academic advising portion as well?
Yes, but we also have, and he's not here with us today, Sanjeev Sharma, who is an amazing professional advisor at the Carsey School.
Wonderful. Yeah, so even folks in the room that you're seeing faces right now, they will be a part of this process with you. You have your student success team here. So you saw our faces in that intro in the beginning of the presentation. So again, we're really here from initial inquiry through graduation. Please feel free to reach out to us at any point during the process. I think we'll spend most of our time with you during the initial stages of getting into the program. But please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions around, let's say, financial aid, registration, orientation, all of those things that are sort of, nebulous and hard to navigate at first. But we are here to help guide you. And if we don't know the answer to your question, we'll make sure to connect you with the proper folks throughout this process. As an online student, you will be receiving IT services, and this is a part of your additional fees. So they are available online. They are very helpful. They're actually a really wonderful group of folks that if you prefer to get your services maybe on like a Zoom call, maybe you prefer a quick phone call, or maybe you just prefer email, they can meet you where you're at, and make sure that you have everything set up the way that you need it to be. You do have library resources available to you. Just to know, if you are local and nearby, you are able to, you know, welcome yourself onto campus and utilize the physical space in the library if that's the type of environment that you prefer. For folks that are further and probably won't be making it to campus, just know that you have full access to online resources as well. And we do have an Ask a Librarian feature as well that is available online. You do also have your Center for Academic Enrichment. So again, I think sort of the theme of all of these resources is they're really meeting you where you're at. And, with the Center of Academic Enrichment, maybe you need someone to look over a paper, or maybe you're having some trouble starting that paper, or getting some ideas, or maybe you just feel a little bit unsure because you've been out of school for a while. That's okay. So they're going to be there to help you along the way, make sure that you do achieve academic success as well. And then last but certainly not least, we do have career and professional success. So, maybe you're thinking about your next steps. Maybe you're even thinking about, gosh, I haven't brushed up my resume in so long. Where do I even start? Who can I turn to? These are the folks that would help you out. They are also wonderful at helping with, let's say, cover letters, interviews. I know that my most recent interaction with them was updating my LinkedIn because I just was overwhelmed and didn't really know where to start. So they are there as a resource to you as well. All right. So this is a pretty hot topic, pretty popular question that we get. Tuition and fees. So it's pretty straightforward. So if you are an in-state student, it's going to be $570 per credit. If you are an out-of-state student, you'd be looking at $640 per credit. As I mentioned earlier, there are additional technology fees, but this is really based on the amount of credits that you're taking each semester. And a semester is the full 15 to 16 weeks. So if you imagine a traditional semester being right at the end of August through December, and then your spring semester would be looking like end of January to about mid-May. So that is the amount of money that you would be paying based on the amount of credits that you would be taking. Because we operate in terms, it can get a little bit confusing with the 8-week terms versus the full semester. But again, if you have any questions or need clarification on that, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to have a conversation over the phone or email as well. Financial aid is something that is available to you. So we encourage folks to apply if they feel like they may be eligible. Even if you're unsure, I would always encourage folks to apply through FAFSA. And again, if you're unsure of where to start, or maybe you're not sure what that is, no worries. We can help you along the way and point you in the right direction. There are a number of different scholarship opportunities. Those are listed below, and we'd be happy to discuss those in greater detail if you are interested in any of those. Our application is online. So you would go in through the online portal. There is an application fee, and we have a fun surprise on that after we stop the recording, but it is a $65 application fee. We do ask for 2 letters of recommendations. We ask that those be professionals that can speak maybe on your professional work experience or your academics. We do require college transcripts to be uploaded when you do apply through our online portal. It is okay if you submit unofficial transcripts. That will allow the department to still make a decision on your application. But we do like to warn you that upon admission into the program, the grad school will require official transcripts from any colleges or universities that you took classes from. Sometimes folks just go ahead and they go ahead and request their official transcripts, because sometimes it takes a little bit to get them in, but we ask that folks send in any and all transcripts of any class that you may have taken that you received a grade in. So even if you took one class at your local community college, we will ask that you send in that official transcript. As part of the application, you will be asked to write a personal statement. That information is listed online. When you pick the Global Conflict and Human Security program, those writing prompts should be in there. Again, if you have any questions or need clarification on any of that, please feel free to reach out to us. And then we also are asking for you to upload a current resume as well. Important to note that standardized test scores are not required as part of the application. Dr. Gonzalez, I don't know if I missed anything or if you had any advice that you wanted to share on the application.
No, I would just add that I especially like to read the personal statement. And so just some tips for writing a good personal statement. It's important to you that you are in the right program. So we like to make sure that you demonstrate to us in the personal statement why this program is the right one for you and how does it match your career aspirations. So that's just a little tip of what you should focus on in that personal statement.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we are accepting applications for our spring 2024 semester. So spring kind of feels a little bit misleading just because the semester will start right at the end of January. So January 23rd is actually our first day of spring classes, but the deadline to apply is December 15th. So we are almost exactly a month away from that date. So whether you have started your application, maybe you're ready to hit the submit button, just know that that is the deadline. And just know that, if you feel ready and, you want to submit your application, you can go ahead and do so. I would say the turnaround for a decision on an application is a couple of weeks. So I would give it 3 to 4 weeks to get a decision on your application. So I know that we threw a lot of information at you. I know that I've said it a couple of times, but please reach out to us if you have any questions at all. We're really here to help you along the way and, really demystify this process. We don't want you to run into any barriers. We want you to be excited about applying. We hope that this information was helpful. But on the top, you'll see our online student success contact information. We ask that if you call and you have to leave a message, please go ahead and leave us a voice message. It helps us to get you an answer faster. But if you do prefer emailing, go ahead and email us at that email listed right there. We check that daily. We have a hopefully less than 24-hour turnaround time. So please make sure to, again, ask any and all questions that you may have. And we have the Carsey School folks contact information on the bottom. So they are a wonderful wealth of knowledge as well to help you along this process. So at this point, we will open it up for Q&A. And if you feel comfortable enough, please feel free to turn on your cameras, unmute yourselves, and we'd love to hear what you're thinking and what you may be wondering about.
I do see a few, this is Robin, I do see a few questions in the chat box. One is for Nishanth, and she's interested in understanding if or how your GCHS studies changed how you approach medical care in conflict zones.
Yeah, so that's a great question. The GCHS program enabled me to get the big picture. So that certainly does affect how you deliver care. And also when it comes knowing the big picture enables you to design the strategy for your project in a very different way than I would have done it, than doing it in a different way. The key thing is that in terms of delivering medical care, we would still do this. We would still do what we are doing, the same thing as it was when we were. I mean, I would still do the same thing when it was related with humanitarian work, as we would still save lives. But the focus here would be not just saving lives and leaving the patient as they are, but to think more long term about how we can minimize the contextual threats as well.
Thank you, Nishanth. I have another couple questions for you as well, so don't mute yourself just yet. One question is, how did you manage a busy work schedule that sounds very stressful, and your personal life while earning your GCHS degree?
Okay, so I chose the one year option where I finished all my coursework in one single year, so I did not work during that year. So if I was working and studying at the same time, I would have opted for the 2-year track option where I took just one course per term. But in the 1-year track option, I took 2 courses in each term. So I definitely chose not to work during that period so that I could complete the program.
Excellent, thank you. That answers another question that was asked about, can I take just one course per term to lighten my workload? Because they want to keep working. Another question is for you is about how many hours per week did you dedicate to your coursework, taking the 2 courses per 8-week term?
Well, how many hours per week? I would say it was anywhere from 12 to 16 hours per week.
Great. And the last question is, how did you find the experience of online learning?
Well, it was great, and especially because it was asynchronous, I could access the course material anytime I wanted. And initially, I was a little bit apprehensive about how online learning would work out. How is it different from an in-person program? But then the content and you have constant access to the program faculty at any point in time. Any question, you can ask them at any point in time and they revert back to you almost immediately. So I would say that the online learning experience was great. And though I was initially a little bit apprehensive about whether this would be different from an in-person program, by the time I finished the program, those doubts vanished. I would say it was. I don't think there's any major difference between between an in-person program versus online learning. In fact, online learning was more convenient, especially if you're working and studying at the same time.
Great, thank you. Melinda, there's a last question here for you. It's, if I choose the project management track with the 4 capstone project courses, can you share the types of projects that have been done?
Absolutely. So those project management courses serve the GCHS program as well as our master's in community development. And so these students take the courses together, and we've had students in GCHS specifically focus their capstones on, for example, I'll use Nishanth as the first example. Nishanth did his capstone on building a health system, rebuilding a health system, and health security in Syria, which is where he did a stint for Doctors Without Borders. He had initially thought he might be able to go back to Syria to do some field research and perhaps implement a project, but the security situation did not allow for that. And so he ended up collecting mass quantities of data from the World Health Organization and from UN agencies and mapping out the health security, or rather insecurity, within Syria during the war, and sketching out a plan for how to rebuild the health system in Syria. We had another student who graduated recently do her project on food security among people in Navajo Nation in Southwest United States. Another graduate did her capstone on landmine humanitarian education and action in Laos. She happened to be an unexploded ordnance technician, incredibly brave, and did her capstone on Laos and humanitarian action. We've had another student who focused on building an anti-gang program, after-school program for youth in El Salvador. And those are just some examples.
Great. Thank you so much. That's all the questions I see. So I think we're coming to a close here. And I just thank you so much for joining us today, Nishanth and Melinda. And please reach out to any of us for any questions you may have. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.